Hello, First Baptist Youth. I hope you are having a great week. We are going to continue this week looking at parables, the parables of Jesus. Remember, last week we talked about that parables are stories, and Jesus told quite a few of these stories. Stories that mean one thing on one level, but then have a higher spiritual meaning as well. So Jesus is telling stories that have a spiritual meaning, and he uses these to get across a point. So this week we're going to look at the book of Luke, the Gospel of Luke, and chapter 10, and we'll start with verse 25, and we'll read through verse 37. So just a couple of things before I start reading is there are always kind of teachers of the law and people in the Gospels that are trying to trick Jesus or maybe prove that he's not who he says he is or make him slip up a little bit. And that's what we see here at the beginning of this passage. On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he asked, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" "What is written in the law?" he replied. "How do you read it?" He answered, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind." And just want to remind you that that is our core verse is our youth ministry. Now we use the verse from Matthew that says the same thing, Matthew 22, but that is our core verse here. And love your neighbor as yourself. "You have answered correctly," Jesus replied. "Do this and you will live." But he wanted to justify himself. So he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" In reply, Jesus said, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road when he saw the man. He passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and he saw him. He took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to the inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. 'Look after him,' he said, 'and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expenses that you may have.' Which of these do you think was the neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers?" The expert in the law replied, "The one who had mercy on him." Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." So the person, officer, keeper of the law here starts out by trying to trick Jesus, but then asks this question, how do I get eternal life? What do I have to do? And Jesus says, you need to love God with all of who you are and love your neighbor as yourself. And he says, wait a second, who really is my neighbor? And Jesus uses this parable of the Good Samaritan. We see this man in the parable who's been left on the side of the road, who's been beaten and robbed, and 2 people come along and pass him by. They don't even stop to help him. But the Samaritan stops and helps him and even pays for the innkeeper to take care of him. Now, one of the things we need to know is that the Samaritan in Jesus' day, in many areas of his culture, would have been looked down upon. People would have seen Samaritans as lesser people, would have put them down. And so this is a big deal that Jesus uses the Samaritan as the hero of the story. And he's making his point here that, look, everybody is your neighbor. The teacher of the law says, who's my neighbor? Everybody. We're to take care of all those who need help and to be taken care of. And here's the Samaritan who the people listening to his story probably wouldn't have thought of as the hero, becomes the hero of Jesus' parable. So this is a great story for us to remember as we go throughout this week and every week, that Jesus really wants us to take care of others, to look after one another. And it's not the people that we like most or just our family or just our friends that are our neighbors. All people are our neighbors. All people deserve, the love of Christ. So I hope that I will and that you will, as Jesus says, go and do likewise this week, that we will treat others with the love of Christ. Know that we care about you and are praying for you, and I'll see you next time.